Good morning, everyone. Here we are on the Fun Side of Business podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Hampton, and I'm joined by...
Gemma Addison.
Do you know, at some point we're going to be joined by someone different.
We're going to switch it up one day and I'm going to do the intro and that's going to freak everyone out.
Yeah, and they're going to say, oh, hi, I'm Jem. It's like, where's Nick?
Yeah.
But anyway, well, I don't think they'd do that, but they'd definitely say, where's Jem? Anyway, so today, our guest today... Go on, Jem.
Where are you going to start, Nick?
Do you want me to go with this one?
Okay. Yes, this is exciting.
So we are joined by someone who we met a few events, quite an inspiring entrepreneur that has, instead of going down a traditional route for, this is what I'm going to do, has gone down a slightly different route, but one which has allowed her to really, I think, put family first, but to still show that with passion, drive and determination, you can become super successful.
Indeed. Yes.
So, without further ado, we are introducing entrepreneur Kathy Duffy.
Good morning.
Morning,
Good
Kathy.
Morning, Kathy. There we go. Now you've got a lot to live up to, right?
I have.
You've got the intro, and she's probably going, no, nothing like that at all. But you can correct everything that I've got wrong. It's fine. Okay, Kathy. So, what we always like to do with our guests is we always like to go back, but we can go back as far as you want to. So, if we asked at school, were you, rebellious or,
I wouldn't say I was rebellious. I was probably a little bit sneaky, and I'm sure there was an incident.
I love the way you went with that.
Some drawing pins maybe on my teacher's seat, but I don't think. But I didn't get caught. But they're
sneaky, right?
Yeah. But I was always the one distracting other people. But I'd done my own work, so I wouldn't say rebellious. I think I just
had
fun.
Bit of fun.
Yeah, a little bit of fun.
Okay, so
she's a girl after my own heart. That's why I understand.
Okay, so how far did education go for you?
So I went through a very traditional route, school, did A-levels at college, and then went straight off to uni at 18. So very traditional.
Okay, and so what did you study at A-level and uni?
So A-level, I did sociology, which I hated, but I'm very determined. So I decided I'd finish it, and I gritted my teeth and got through it. I did human biology and I did English, and I then went on to uni to do a degree in physiotherapy.
Okay, but that was what you were talking to us before we hit the record button.
Yeah, that's right.
Where you said, you kind of knew from a very young age.
Yeah.
You are going to be a physiotherapist.
Yeah, I'm very determined, and when I put my mind to something and make up my mind, that's what I'm going to do. That's what happened. So I'd actually had physio for quite a few different things over the years as a child, and it just seemed to resonate, which was really strange, bearing in mind I was as young as I was. And actually, once I'd qualified, what I realised was that the physio job that I thought it was, actually the job was really different, but I was really fortunate actually that I actually really enjoyed it. It was something that I was passionate about, and I loved helping people. So I was quite fortunate that my 11-year-old goal turned out to be a good one for me. Okay,
so when you said it was quite different, what was the expectation and what was the reality?
I suppose when I was 11, I just because I was having joint pains, I was seen by a physio who helped me do my sport to get back to the stuff I loved. But the reality is that lots of physios end up working in hospital with very sick people, and working in the NHS is not a piece of cake at all times. It can be. It can be very challenging. So I think it was just a typical child view of what a physio was. That
because of the experience you had as a child.
Yeah, very much so. And the reality of working in the NHS is that it is tough. It is really tough. I think physically, mentally, emotionally, as a physio, listening to patients and what they're going through. It wears you down, and I always knew as a physio when I needed a holiday, because I used to find my empathy levels waning, that I don't want to listen to this, I've had enough, I need to step out, and I knew emotionally I was full and I needed to go and have a break and recharge the batteries. But I think a lot of people have that.
So I have a question. Is it a little bit like, and again, I don't know which way around it'll be, and bizarrely enough, we have this quite often in accountancy, but I'll explain why. Do you find that it's like physio is quite a thankless task? By the fact of either you go along and make them better, but they think that's what you're there for, or you can't instantly click your fingers, rub a muscle for 10 minutes and suddenly their 30-year pain has gone.
Oh, that's a really good analogy, actually. And I think also that when, certainly in my later years, because of the expertise I had in the area that I worked in, which was working with the staff at the local hospital, it was all it was very complex. So there were mental health issues, the physical pain that they were coming with, there were the challenges of being off work, and that creates a lot of emotion, anxiety, worry. So it was a very challenging area to work, which I absolutely loved, I have to say. But there is that expectation that, you're either going to get me better or you didn't manage to do that. You haven't allowed me to do that.
You either do what I expected or you deliver less than that.
Yeah.
So there's never that point of going, oh, wow, I didn't think she could do anything at all. And it's better. It's always the bar's here, so you can either hit the bar or below.
Or people have expectations, which was often very common, which were unrealistic.
Yeah.
They'd come in and they've sprained, they sprained their ankle or they've broken their arm, and I'm running a marathon in 6 weeks. Well, probably not. So there was a lot of that, and I think that takes its toll. But I loved helping people. That was,
this is where I was talking about, like, going back to accountancy, and that's a dull subject. So I'll try not to talk about it too long. But we can find that where we can run someone's books and think, they start with a £4,000 tax bill, and we work and we work and we work and we work and we find this and we find that, we ask the right questions and get their tax bill down to £2,000. We feel like we've done the greatest job in the world, and they come along and say, my mate down the pub's only paying £1,000. Can you do something else for that? And you think, we've just literally done everything we can.
We've got it down.
Yeah, we you were paying 4,000. 90% of accountants would have stopped and said, you're paying £4,000. We've got it down to 2, and it's like, can you make it less? Or how am I going to find £2,000? It's like, anyway.
Like Kathy, it's expectations, isn't it? It's what people
hugely.
Okay, so you've obviously, has it always been NHS or like PCTs?
So it's always been NHS, and I went through lots of clinical roles. I ended up taking on a trial. So we were the first place in the country that ran a physio direct trial where 70% of patients were managed over the phone, which has huge implications for managing waiting lists. That was back in 2000, and I think in the UK, I wouldn't know the percentage, but very, very few trusts use that model, which is, it's quite frustrating when you think about it.
How effective could it be?
It was very effective. So the trial we did, 70% of people were dealt with, managed, treated, happy, discharged over the phone. So all we saw was the complex stuff. So that trial went very well. We then moved after Paul and I had our first daughter. So we wanted to be close to family. And when I came back, I didn't want to be in a managerial role. I was good at it to the point that I left the department in a better place, but it wasn't my passion. My passion was working with patients and helping them get better. So I went back part-time, but there wasn't enough money.
But I'm guessing it must be quite difficult, because when someone's got a stiff joint, 50%, I don't know whether it's 50%, and by the way, I'm no physio, so I'm guessing yes. Please don't ever take any medical advice off me ever. But there's so many things where people have a pain or an ache or whatever that needs to be exercised and needs to be, unfrozen by using it. And there's other times where you have, the same kind of problem in the same place, but actually it needs rest and recovery.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's why I'm kind of quite surprised if like 70% of people can be resolved.
Well, that basically comes down to the fact that the body does a lot of it itself. And actually, I would say with most people, there's an element of reassurance.
Yeah.
Carry on using it. Most people get worse because they don't, and they get stiff and all that kind of stuff. So actually our place was when we caught people early, often within 24 hours, we could help stuff resolve before it really grabbed hold of, properly. So it was very rewarding, but it as I say, we won lots of accolades for it, but it was something that hasn't moved on with the NHS. There's still a very traditional role, I think.
Like red tape that caused the problem?
Oh, hugely, yeah. Change is a big thing, isn't it? Not just in the NHS,
no one
in business
change.
as well. But
I'm sure I heard someone say like a few years ago the NHS was still using a dot matrix printer for something. So
yeah.
But there we go. Okay, so at the point where you've decided, so it's now, you can see the path you can get to disillusionment. For the 11-year-old that kind of went, I can just go and help people and this is it. And then going through the bureaucracy that's the NHS and, everything else that goes with it.
I think there were a few things, and I do think sometimes life events happen. So it wasn't just that there were changes in the NHS. So there were changes in the NHS. There were changes with wages. Paul lost all his overtime at the hospital, which was worth £6,000 to us. So financially, there was a change. That was a massive hit for us. There were also pension changes. So again, we both had to contribute more money, which we didn't have.
Yep.
So that was another £5,000 to £6,000. So we were effectively £12,000 worse off a year. We were at our glass ceiling, so there were no promotions. We weren't having pay rises with two girls that were getting older. So I would say circumstances outside our control were an issue, plus probably some frustration after 20 plus years. Change, all those things, put those all into the melting pot, and you have a situation where you, I suppose, start to think is this it? And one of the, I think, conversations we had was we were shrinking our goals to fit the finances we had. Yeah. And that meant, we weren't able to go on holiday abroad. We had one car and Paul cycled. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are lots of people that are much worse off than we were. But actually, the reality is that it's not going to change or potentially get better if we stay doing the same thing day in and day out. There was a moment for me where I just thought, is this it? My dream of being a physio all my life, staying in the NHS, getting that, decent pension at the end. I could have gone and worked privately, but I didn't want to. That was our reality, that we either stayed what we were doing and getting paid the same, living the same life with the girls getting older and financially it being harder, or we looked at doing something a bit different, and doing something a bit different can be really scary.
Well, people say that nothing's going to change unless something changes. It's,
Yeah.
The definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's doing the same thing and
expecting a different outcome.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was. So I think that was quite a difficult place, and I was there for a few months, really struggling with that and walking away. Not even walking away, but starting something new, because if I started something new, I had to train. I had to learn new stuff, and here I was after 24 years as a physio being the expert, because I was an expert. I was very good at what I did in my job, but I was going right back to starting again, and that terrified me. Yeah, terrified me.
I think that's a kind of running theme from a lot of people who have gone and set up their businesses.
Yeah,
because not many people, I think, either have the skill set, the confidence, the courage, or the probably, in a few cases, the ability to start a business when they're young. So everyone kind of gets to that point of, having 15 years working for others, 15 years learning their trade, learning their skill, becoming an expert in what they do. And now when they decide I'm going to go and set up a business, it's something all entirely new, and you're starting again.
Yeah.
And it's like you say, it's new skills you've got to learn.
Yeah, and it was, as a physio, you talk to people all the time, and with the business that I had, it was a similar kind of thing. I was going to be talking to people, so I had lots of skills already, and we chatted about this briefly. But when I started the business, we had to do some training, and we had to go to a local hotel, and it was 5 hours. And I knew when I walked into the room, I didn't really want to be there. I was uncomfortable, which again, I hadn't been for a very long time. And we had a particular task that we had to do during the day. And we were asked to go outside, find a corner in the hotel and do what you need to do for 10 minutes. And then we're going to come back into the room. And I couldn't do it. And I went and sat in the toilet, put the toilet seat down, and I sat on the toilet seat just twiddling my thumbs, looking at my watch for 10 minutes, thinking, I'm not ready for this. And I'd already started the business, so, and I'm going to say nobody's listening, are they? It's just us talking about it, But that was a massive pivotal point for me, and I knew that I had to get over that. But it took me about 6 months actually to move forwards with the business.
Okay, so at this time, are you still physio, and this was side hustle now?
Yeah. So okay. I had about when did I leave? I had four years where I did both. Okay. So physio, I was working about 20 hours a week, and the business I was doing sort of 10, 15 hours a week, I think, early on, and being a mum and managing all the stuff that comes
and everything else you have in life,
dogs and brownies and swimming and everything else that they do. So, but it wasn't the turning point for me. It was actually I went to an event which was put on by the company, and sat in the auditorium with several thousand other people. And I walked into the room and I honestly thought, why is everybody so happy? everybody's smiling, in a bit of a resentful way, actually. This is ridiculous. This is some kind of weird space I'm in. But by the end of the day, I actually realised it wasn't. And the difference between them and me was that they had hope.
Okay.
And that was my second light bulb moment. And I left thinking, I really need to do this properly. This is a business and I need to treat it like a business. And that was 6 months. And that was the point which I've never looked back, really.
Do you want to know the interesting part? We've got this far into the podcast.
Yeah.
And we haven't even yet discosed what the business
We
is.
haven't. We just keep saying the business.
We've got the business. Yeah, we started the business. So, do you want me to go and have a stab at this one?
Yeah,
Kathy?
go on then.
Okay, so
I'll
I
correct
believe that Kathy is, or originally started as a utility warehouse representative, and has worked her way up, built her team. That she's now one of the utility warehouse supremes of the UK. So in terms of how the business works, you have teams and teams and teams working for you, don't you?
Team.
I would say not working for me, working with me.
Okay.
Working with me, because they're not my staff. They run their own businesses, and we just have a business model where we help people duplicate what I do successfully.
And I'm guessing what you do, and this is quite an interesting thing, because I'm quite fascinated by UW anyway. So I'm going to come along and grill you a little bit in terms of how it works and what have you. So ultimately what you're doing is you are able to do something where you genuinely help people.
Yes, that's correct.
So it probably comes exactly the same from physio, where you're able to help people in, issues with movements, helping people with injuries and what have you.
Yeah, exactly.
You're now helping people with their money, aren't you?
Yes. So I basically help people pay less for their essential services and shopping. So it's a very, very simple thing. And you're right, because helping people is it's a core value that I have, and I wouldn't do it if that wasn't the case.
But that's
what is embedded with you when you're 11 years old.
Yeah.
Though. That's never actually changed. It doesn't matter how you're doing it. It's just still core value is still there.
If you think back to when we did the podcast, and now I know at least this one has been released with James Roper.
Yes.
And he had the issue where he said he was working in a recruitment firm where ethics and trying to find the right fit was secondary to sell and get the commissions. And he just said he couldn't do it because he couldn't align with that.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it's the same with you. If it was a case of, I'm going to con people into paying 50% more on all their essential services, you couldn't do that job.
No. So there will be people, and there have been people that I see where the timing just isn't right. They might have the most amazing deal, or they might be really elderly, and what they set up 15 years ago is right, and change creates too much drama and upset and worry. And so sometimes walking away is a really good thing, but I think that's about being honest with people, and that's about maintaining my integrity, which, and again, being honest when I was dealing with patients was one thing. This is exactly the same. So for me, it's always about what's in it for them rather than what's in it for me. So whenever I speak to somebody, I don't have expectations about how the interaction is going to go. It's about, and the same as a patient, they come into the cubicle, you listen to the problems they have, what they want to achieve. In a very simplistic way, with utility warehouse, it's exactly the same. It's the same thing. How can I serve them? How can I help them? And it's either saving money, or it may be helping them bolt on an extra income, which is exactly what I started to do.
So do you want me to start hitting you with some tough questions?
Go on then, fire.
Okay.
Fire
so utility warehouse runs itself. The model that it has is going to have the scary 3 initials, right? That people associate with scam businesses.
Yeah, correct.
Which is a great thing to do because, at the end of the day, the business has got nothing to hide. We'll happily talk about anything.
Yep.
So because it's ultimately an M&M model, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of names, aren't there? Multi-level marketing, network marketing, direct selling.
Yeah.
That they're all.
But the reality is that the majority of MLM schemes are very much someone pays in £1,000 for their starter kit. They're going to make 20 quid in commissions. That's the end of it. And off it goes the next one and the next one, and the next one. And, I'm not going to say it's a glorified Ponzi, but in a lot of things, sometimes that's exactly what it is. But with utility warehouse, it's a very, very low entry point to
it's a tenner.
Yeah.
Which is refundable.
Yeah. But that goes along and shows the difference between, a business model that's, selling any old anything and can pay these huge commissions and what have you. But utility warehouse is one of those places where you can go call up your energy bill and see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bottom line is that rather than UW paying for advertising, it's word of mouth. It's a word of mouth model. So that's how I describe it, that it's just word of mouth. And I shared it with family, friends, colleagues and neighbours and so on and so forth. But rather than them joining because they saw an advert in the paper or they saw an advert on TV, they've joined via me. So I've introduced them to the company. And because I do the introduction and the company don't need to pay millions and millions of pounds in advertising, they can keep the costs down. But
that's the crazy thing. I mean, I first heard about utility warehouse many, many years ago. And you would, you start to think that, here will come the horror stories. Yeah. It's great to start and then all these prices skyrocket money. But it's just never happened with utility warehouse, which I think is such a great advertisement for the business.
Them aside from
that you just think, okay, so if it is this such horrible thing, when's it going to fall over? Because it's just never going to.
Interestingly, we'd actually been customers for 4 years before we joined as partners. So it wasn't that we came in thinking we need to, use this with the people we know. It was actually that we just wanted to save money. And we were introduced by my brother.
Okay.
So we'd come in and we were saving money every year and we'd referred people to him for 4 years because it was so great. We didn't get paid a penny. It was just
you naturally
really
referred
helpful.
because you.
By the way, can I ask, are you more senior than your brother now?
No, because he's got 5 years on me. So,
so how many years are you in now? How long?
11.
11. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's ultimately given you the option, should you wish to. I mean, I guess you just pick your hours you want to work and do what you want to do.
Yeah, I do whatever I do. So yesterday was a prime example. My daughter flew out to Turkey, and she said, "Mum, can you take us to the airport?" So I said yes, and I got up at 2:00 in the morning, and I drove them to the airport, and I drove home, and I then decided mid-morning I felt terrible and I went to bed for a couple of hours. Yeah. So, and I did some productive stuff in the afternoon, but, I've got the freedom to do that. The other thing which has been a permanent thing in my UW journey is I'm a swim mum. That's what I call myself. So both of my girls have swum competitively. They started 12 years ago, and that's meant one or both of them have been swimming early morning, so that's a 4 a.m. alarm call, Monday to Friday. So the business has been built with that backdrop. And I was at the pool anything up to 9 or 10 times a week, plus weekend galas. So I was always going to struggle to
That's
move.
Like a job in itself.
Oh, completely. It was,
a lot.
With all, and just the silly stuff like the towel washing and dealing with swimsuits and feeding them, because there's a lot of food consumed with swimmers, that actually that in itself, as you say, is pretty much a full-time job.
Yeah.
So this business has flexed. It's had to flex around them, and I made the decision to step away primarily to enable me to help them do that.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't sustain being a physio and being a swim mum, because I was getting up at 4, doing a 10-hour day, coming home, doing the physio stuff, and then repeating.
Yeah.
And I was so tired. I was actually at risk of probably hurting me, not being on the ball with my patients and stuff like that. So actually it was a sensible decision. But we were very fortunate that the 4 years plus that we'd had built up a passive income. So I could step away, and there was some financial security to enable me to do that.
Amazing.
Do you still do any physio now on the side?
No, I don't.
What about if your daughters get injured at swimming? As a swim mum, do you?
That's quite cool. They've hit the jackpot there, haven't they?
That I can help with, but they're very lucky because Dad's a physio as well.
Okay.
So actually, I've kind of stepped back. But to go back to your question, I kept my registration up for 2 years. You have to practice within a 2-year period to show competence.
Yeah.
So when I officially walked out the door, I kept my registration up for 2 years. And then at the 2-year point, I was like, I can let this go. I've moved on.
You were ready to.
I was ready to let it go.
Yeah.
And the day I walked out the door, people just said, "You're so brave." And I think there was an element of being brave. about it. But
I don't think anyone can set up a business without some bravery.
No, I didn't.
It's amazing.
I didn't realise that at the time. Yeah. I just thought I did what needed to be done.
Something just didn't feel right, and you needed to change.
I needed to change. Yeah. So it's been a really interesting journey. That from being a mum, I would say I've been a mum primarily, but they're both off to uni in September. Wow. So life is changing hugely, and I can.
What are you gonna?
I know
all these lay-ins. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You'll probably still be getting up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Conditioned now.
I think my sister's got to go through the same thing so my sister, her daughter, so my niece, was again a competitive swimmer, relatively high level, and then took to rowing. And so now she's been a rower, and she's now going to have the same thing because she's been given a scholarship and what have you to the University of Arizona.
Oh, wonderful.
So she's now, that's it, gone. She's going to be there 3-4 years, done.
No,
and she's sitting there going, I don't know. At that point,
my mum and dad, I used to play basketball at quite a high level, and I can't travel on coaches. So whenever the team were on the coach, my mum and dad were following in the car.
Can't travel, or Queen Jen
No, it's not because no, that's not queenness. That's not. I'm not being princess. I generally get travel sick. So wherever I went, bless them, they were behind me.
But when you're in a limo or a helicopter or something,
I don't get travel sick.
No, I know.
When I'm on my private jet, I don't get sick.
Yeah, that's it.
But no, they followed me. I was Wales, wherever I went, they were coming to. Yeah, so what parents do is just a lot.
Yeah, and I think from the the galas that my youngest is she's at a national level, so we often have 1 or 2 weeks in Sheffield at Ponds Falls. That's 1 or 2 weeks out. Yeah. That's not being in the office. That's having unpaid leave if you need to, or taking 2 weeks holiday, which, as lovely as Sheffield is, it's not necessarily where people want to spend their holiday. I don't need to do that. Yeah. I can take my laptop and I can work from where I'm.
So I'm guessing now, are you more team focused or more customer focused?
So probably I'm more team focused, just because of the experience we have. The business model means that we've got to where we've got to in 11 years. If I can impart and share the knowledge and the mistakes that we made and the things that we learn along our 11-year journey, I can help people shorten their journey to wherever they want to get to. So they may not want to get to where I am, but wherever they want or whatever goals they have, my role is to help them get to that place and do it as quickly as they want to, and just concertina, squash that time down.
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. Do you know we're gonna do this one anyway? So should anyone decide that they want to join UW, by the way, I'm sure there's many other businesses you can start or whatever. Just for the full disclaimer, if anyone ever decided they wanted to join, is it a case of they could just reach you on LinkedIn or?
Yes, I've got a LinkedIn profile. Yeah, absolutely.
There we go.
That's that easy.
Sorted.
Yeah.
There we go. So Kathy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Kathy.
It has been very interesting, and the nice part is that I think a lot of people, from how I think, you'd look at it and you go, oh, UW, that'll be a nice little passive side hustle, whatever. But you're talking about high-end physio, high-end what you're doing, and then to be able to take that and go replace with something entirely different. Yeah, it's a lot more of a business and a true path that someone can take rather than, a supplementary income.
Well, I think that's the nice thing about it. People can do what they want with it. So it can be a couple of £100 or it can be a business. And if you treat it like a business, you'll get paid like a business.
Yeah.
I think that you would have succeeded in anything you did.
Thank you.
You've got that look about you that just says,
determination.
Which is the film? It's like The Fifth Element, or like one of the failure is not an option. Apollo 13. Where it's like, failure is not an option. This is like Kathy's moniker. Yeah. I think you could have that. Failure is not an option. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being here. You can catch up with us on our Extra Slice, which is where we're then going to talk about Kathy when Kathy's not here anymore, which she doesn't even know about. But for those of you who want to tune in, you can subscribe and pick things up there. But in the meantime, thank you very much to everyone for listening.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
And thank you, Kathy, for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you at the next one.